Good afternoon, everyone. Nick Salzman here. Thank you for joining us for the 2021 American Society of Dowsers virtual online conference. I'll be your host today, and what we're going to talk about is deep clearing with the Ha. This might be a new topic for some of you, but I look forward to sharing with you my process and how everything works. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so what is the Ha? The Ha simply means breath of life. It is great for relaxation and for clearing stagnant energy. Other cultures have discovered the breath and call it something different. For instance, the Egyptians call it Ka, the Hindu call it prana, Chinese, they call it Chi, the Japanese, Ki. And for us Westerners, probably the closest interpretation to it would be the Holy Spirit. So how does the Ha breath work? Basically, if we think of it, the breath itself ties us to life and consciousness. It's the first thing we take coming into this body, and it's the last thing we take when we leave this body. Basically, it's life force, and it's almost like a river that ever flows, and what we can do is direct this energy through us to others with focused intention. This can affect the living, the deceased, human, and non-human entities the same. The way that it helps is having good posture, standing with your back straight, with your feet on the floor, or sitting. What the Ha breath does is it's just that. When we breathe out, we make a sound. And what that does is it engages our solar plexus, which happens to be the battery to our energetic field. We take this energy center and we align it with the will of our heart. We attach our intention and direct it and focus on the connection, and it allows us to create change. If we send it to a person or we send it to a deceased person, essentially what we're doing is we're pulling them in to this river of life force and consciousness, and a terrific healing can happen once this is established. So before we talk about the Ha more, we're going to talk a little bit about something called Ho'oponopono. It basically is a Hawaiian practice of reconciliation and forgiveness. The word simply translates into English as correction, or to make amends twice, or to make things right twice. It invokes our higher self to cleanse the similar soul memory in the subconscious mind. The four phrases of Ho'oponopono is I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. These phrases open up pathways for clearing stored information on the soul level. So the way that we combine the Ha with Ho'oponopono is the Ha breath constitutes we breathe in, we hold it, we exhale, and then we hold it. Different people have different methods in counting. For me, I'll share what works the best with me. And what I do is I breathe in for 4 seconds. And as I'm breathing in my mind, I'm saying, I love you. I hold that breath for 4 seconds. And then I say in my mind, I'm sorry. I exhale, making the sound, just like you're blowing your breath in someone's face. I do that for 8 seconds. And in my mind, I'm saying, please forgive me. Then at last, I hold it for 4 more seconds, and I say, thank you, in my mind. I do this process until I get the goosebumps. Some of us in the audience, I'm sure, are more empathic, and if you're using the pendulum for a long time, you're definitely sensitive to some of these energies. So you'll know when you're ready to move on when you get the goosebumps that go up and down the back of your neck, maybe back of your head, sometimes on your arms, and even your legs. For those of us that are still learning to tune into these sensitivities, all you have to do is just wait till your pendulum stops spinning and gets back to more of a north and south, or for some people, it's a left and right swing. Either way, that's a perfectly balanced swing and indicates that you're done with the step and ready to move on to the next one. So through this work, I've been able to figure out that there's three basic clearing protocols that work on just about everything. Not everything, but just about everything. The very first thing that we would want to do if we're working on a person or working on an entity, we would want to remove all their pain or cure all lesions sustained in their astral bodies. You can just simply say, remove all pain and cure all injuries or cure all lesions. That works really, really well. The words aren't as important, the intention is all you really need. The next one would be to depolarize negative mental stimuli or neutralize all toxic emotional trauma stored in the bank of memory and energy field. You can say that much more simpler by saying, I ask that we remove all memories of pain and all toxic emotional energy inside their energy field and block of consciousness from all timelines. It's very important that we say all timelines because we want to clear this from the top down to the bottom. So make sure we go all timelines when we clear stuff. And last but not least, we're going to nourish the Christ spark, which is that little spark of light of divine that sits in the middle of the chest of all human entities and all human people. I have that, you have that, and because of that, we're easily connected, just like a drop of water is connected to the ocean. So what we do is we nourish the Christ spark, and we send nourishing, unconditional love energy to allow them to feel full, content, and complete once again. You can say source energy, you can say unconditional love, any of that stuff pretty much works, okay? And like I said, this works on human and non-human entities, and thought form energy is the same. So we'll talk a little bit more about entities. Those of you guys that have seen some of my other talks that I've had in the years past know that this is a big passion of mine. And I really like diving in and figuring out the difference between all this stuff. And more importantly, learning how we can clear things not only in person, but also at a distance. So let's first talk about one of the more common things you're going to find is residual haunts in earthbound human entities. So, like we said before, we all carry a spark of the divine we call the Christ spark. This connects us to Christ consciousness and each other. We can send healing energy to the Christ spark and can cross over spirits by having them find this light in the middle of their chest. We can create poltergeist energy upon our death, usually if there's some sort of, if it's unexpected, or if there was some sort of trauma that was sustained, like maybe someone was struggling for their life, they were drowning or suffocating or something like that. Some sort of struggle at the end of their life could totally create a poltergeist energy. And so it's really important that we know that when we work on depolarizing negative mental stimuli and neutralizing toxic emotional trauma, if we do this, we can neutralize the poltergeist energy that's around people. If we don't do that, the poltergeist energy usually deflects our healing, and we can't get spirits to cross over as easy because they almost have this ball of electromagnetic energy that's around it that's keeping them from moving on, if that makes sense. So one of the biggest things that people are unfamiliar with is how disease can be passed down through energetic attachments with earthbound spirits. We have cancer patients, people that maybe died of an overdose, so there's like a lot of like drugs, alcohol, that kind of stuff can easily be given to somebody else the same. We have someone that dies of cancer, like say it's one of your grandparents, and we love that person and we grieve for them. And they come to us and they want to essentially comfort us and let us know, hey, we're still here, everything's okay, we're fine. And then what happens is they get close to us, and because we're overcome with grief and we're overcome with tremendous sorrow, our energy field is very strong. And when they get close to us, oftentimes they get stuck in our energy, and then over time, sometimes a short time, sometimes long periods of time, it just depends on the person's ability to resist. These kind of energy signatures of cancer and disease can transfer into the physical body. This is why when people have cancers and tumors and say they have operation to get this stuff removed, how it can manifest in other parts of the body, and they don't really fully remove cancer. That's because its seed lies within the energy bodies and not the physical body. So getting back to drugs and alcohol, for people that all of a sudden maybe start picking up smoking, or get into different kinds of drinking, or just kind of doing things and have an unusual behavior that we're not really used to. Maybe they crave different foods that they've always never liked. All these kinds of things, unusual behaviors are going to be things to look for as possible entity attachment. So when we clear these things, we would, like, if it was a person that was alive and they had an entity attached to them, we would want to ask for permission to first connect to the higher self of the person that's alive, and then ask for permission to ask questions about their energy. And one of the questions being, do you have any entities attached to this person? Is there any entities attached to this person? If we get a yes, then we ask universal knowledge, source, your dowsing system, whatever you like. We ask for permission to see if we can then contact the higher self of the earthbound to send them healing energy. We'll go through all those protocols and how to do that later in this, but I'm just giving you guys a structure and how it all works out. So, poltergeist and tulpa energy are similar, but they are a little different. Both are created from mental projections of our energy, from our subconscious and our unconscious. Basically, extreme emotional behavior can really induce a lot of this kind of projection of energy. Like if we're afraid of something, coming into our room. Maybe we lived in a house before where we had a really bad roommate that would come in and argue, or maybe there was a child that was abused by an adult or something like that. They move out of that house, move into a new house that already has a poltergeist energy there. These things, you can almost see it as like a ball of like etheric clay that our fears and our traumas can really manipulate this stuff and really help it take shape. So as you can see in the photo, I have a picture of a child sleeping with a dark, shadowy figure kind of standing in the doorway. If we are that child and we're abused by an adult and we're constantly reliving those memories of that adult coming in and abusing us, it wouldn't take long for that poltergeist to start taking on the shape of a person, inducing that kind of fear, because it feeds off that kind of energy. I don't want people getting afraid of this stuff. I just want them to understand that's just what they do. We can't do anything about a mosquito that bites us and feeds off of our blood and finds a host and leaves. We can all agree a mosquito is uncomfortable and sometimes a pest, but it's not evil. That's just kind of what a mosquito does. So, same with the poltergeist. This is what they do. Now, tulpas. Tulpas are mental projections usually associated with the workings of magic and spellcasting. Some of my friends that are into Wicca and pagan kind of rituals and stuff, depending on what you're asking for, these kind of projections can also create almost like an etheric residue that can take shape over time, which also take on the shape and size and characteristics of our fears and our traumas and the stuff that is stored in our subconscious. One of the more common ones that I find tulpas looking like are spiders. Sometimes people have dreams of big spiders, or maybe a kid sees a big spider on the wall or something. Tulpas can absolutely take on the shape of many different things. In more advanced cases, they can take on almost what seems to be the appearance of some sort of an entity. The way you know you're dealing with a tulpa and not a poltergeist or something else is typically their eyes. You can tell because they're big and they're white and they're very bright. They're not colored. They're usually bright white eyes, and that's how you can tell there's a tulpa. For my friends that are around here that are clairvoyant, or maybe you've seen one in the physical, the white eyes is a dead giveaway that this is a tulpa type energy. When we deal with poltergeist and tulpa energy by itself, understand they do not come from the light, so we do not send them to the light. What we want to do is neutralize them, and we send them back to the universal mind. Whether you call on angelic assistance or not, you can do this without them. You can also do this with them. It just depends on your comfort level. But understand the universal mind is where our thoughts and projections all come from. All of our ideas come from the universal mind. So sometimes this stuff just needs the right direction, and that's where we want to send it, is back to the universal mind. Non-human entities. There is a few classifications that we can call a non-human entity, but the biggest thing that we need to understand is that they do not have a Christ spark, and they are constructed more out of mental energy. It's a lot more like mental energy than anything else. So they don't have a Christ spark. They're not part of the divine, but they are something here that is a lower level entity, lower level of consciousness that we are dealing with. And this is something that can easily influence people's behaviors, thoughts, and feelings. They may not be able to quite manifest in physical form other than maybe a shadow or something that just moves kind of quickly and that's it. But they definitely respond to our traumas and negative emotions. But not only that, if you're getting these things coming into your house, they're also going to reflect an inner conflict, struggle, or emotion that we have inside of us. For instance, if you're dealing with a lot of confusion in your life and you're dealing with some depression because you're not sure if you made the right choice, or maybe you did make a choice and you're unhappy with the outcome. Either way, if we're kind of confused and frustrated, we're going to attract the confused and frustrated. So even though they can be kind of a pest and sometimes problematic, these are excellent teachers, and they really help point to us what's inside of us, whatever conflict or struggle or whatever we have, that's going to allow us to move on and move forward after we address these issues in a much healthier manner. One thing I can tell you is that most of them, they're just stuck and they don't want to be here. For many different reasons, they can get pulled through here, stuck here, but they don't want to be here and they need help getting back. So if they come to you, it's because you carry the light of someone that can help them, or maybe you have the will to help them or the interest to help them and aren't quite sure, and you've stumbled across this video. You're absolutely in the right place at the right time, and we're going to go through all of that. So some are very old and complex and can be very dangerous if you're not approaching with love. The way I see it, when I see these things and I come across these things, some of you see me online on the different social media pages on Facebook and some of these other groups that I'm a part of. They have these non-human entities that are there. I approach them with love and I let them know that I am here to help them and that they don't have to be lost and stuck anymore, and I will help them get back home after I remove their pain. So when we remove their pain and we remove their memories of pain and we send them a little nourishing energy, they're a lot easier to deal with and they tend to listen to us a lot better. So from there, we just basically help them get back to where they need to go, which is oftentimes to a dimension that best serves their spiritual evolution. If that's hard for you to say, just say their home dimension. These things can absolutely affect your dreams and any electronics that are around the house, such as radios, televisions, smoke alarms, lights, all that kind of stuff. These things definitely can affect this, and usually that's not to scare us, it's to get our attention and say, hey, look, over here, I need some help. Approach these with love, and you'll never have problems with them. Let's talk about the jinn. There's a lot of stuff that's out there about these, and to be honest, these are probably some of the more scary things you're going to come across. And to be even more honest with you, they are very misunderstood. These are our brothers. These are a non-human entity. They are what would be considered a low-level entity. One of the biggest things you're going to be able to tell it's a jinn when they come around is there's usually a lot of that feeling of fear, like something's watching you. If you have dreams of them or if you have seen them before, these would be kind of like your red-eyed shadow people. Anything that has like glowing eyes to it, usually they're like red, yellow, green. These are typical colors that they are. There is so much information that's out there about these things. And to be honest, they're actually really similar to humans. They have families, they have their own clans, they have an own place where they want to go to, and not all of them get along with each other. And not all of them are bad. But what usually happens is old methods attract these things and pull these things through. And when they want help getting back home, they rely on the old methods. The two most common old methods, one would be a Ouija board. The second one would be scrying. If any of you guys are not familiar with that, it's being able to look into stuff like a mirror or a bowl of water or a crystal or something like that. Scrying is a very old method. And looking into mirrors and stuff, that's typically where these things kind of can jump from. That's why you always have, people's stories about mirrors being portals and stuff, because there's some actual truth to it. So When these things are trying to get back through the mirror and get back to their home dimension, oftentimes they can break the mirror or even rip the mirror off the wall. I've seen this happen a lot. And it's not that they're angry or upset. They're just trying to get out of their situation and they're trying to get back home. All they know is they got pulled through and they don't want to be here and they want to go home. So the jinn are very intelligent and very powerful beings. Very intelligent in the aspect that I believe humans, us people in antiquity, used to contact them for information and knowledge. They can be very helpful. If you look at the folklore stories of genies, you rub the lamp and a genie comes out and they grant you 3 wishes, but for some reason those 3 wishes don't ever exactly work out the way you want. This is where this story comes from. They can materialize and dematerialize objects, and they can jump from one place to another. They are very good at teleporting in places, but because they do not have a spark of the divine, they also do not have a physical body. So what that means is they are powerful in their own regard, but so are humans in an entirely different regard. And somewhere along the time, people found out that magic can hold dominion over them. They can make them do stuff, they can hurt them, they can trap them, they can do all sorts of stuff to them that are not very nice. And because of that, it polarizes them. You know, one of the most common things we could think of for what's something that's like that is if we think of like a pit bull, a dog, something that anybody that's had a pit bull knows that these are very good family dogs. They are very protective, they're very affectionate and very friendly. But if we beat that dog, and we fight that dog, and we treat that dog bad, it can make it very dangerous. And so we have to understand that these things are hurt oftentimes, they're lost, and they are just desperate to get back to where they go. So if they're in your life and they show up at your house or a friend's house, it's because they want to be helped. And if you're the one that's experiencing these things, understand that there's a really good chance that you helped these things before in a previous lifetime. And so they are coming to you for help. So anytime I see one of these things or I'm dealing with one of these at a person's house, I always treat them with love and respect, and I let them know that they are my brother. And from this side of the veil, I'm honored to help them. And so doing the work of taking away their pain, removing all of their memories of pain from all timeline. This is going to take any kind of spells or anything, hexes that have been put on these things. It's going to neutralize all of that, and then always send them nourishing energy. This is going to help them feel full again. It's going to really change their demeanor. What I've found works best is to call upon a being of light. Some of you guys are good at calling on archangels or spirit guides or any of this kind of stuff. These being of light are going to be very helpful in assisting us in helping transport these jinn back to their home dimension. Once again, they are not of the light. They do not have a Christ spark, so we do not send them to the light. We heal them, take away their memories of pain, nourish them, and then call upon angelic assistance to help us transport these things back to their home dimension. I will exercise a word of caution to you, though. What will happen is we have to ask if there's any of them that are else present with them. What I mean by that is if there's anything behind them or with them that's anger or upset that you're talking to them. So when we do healing on a jinn, we do the healing, and then when we're done with the healing, before we send them off, we ask them, is there anybody else there with you, angry or upset that I'm talking to you? So if they say yes, just say, hold on, let me call forth this other one and let me help them, and they'll come back and finish helping you. If not, help them out, get them back to their home dimension. They may return with other ones because now they've found a system and now they are acting out of service and out of love, and they see you as someone that can help them. So don't be surprised if you clear one of these and then all of a sudden you clear 5 of them from people's houses or whatever over the next month, because these things come by and they see that you're able to help, and they'll absolutely help you. And to be honest, you help them and they will absolutely protect you. So it kind of goes both ways. We help them, they help us. These are our brothers. Treat them with love. Now, the succubus and incubus entities, these are a little bit different. This is something that, as you can see in the photo, this is an older painting. Some of us have experienced these things. There's a lot of heaviness on our chest in the morning or early hours at night or something like that. They can definitely provoke a little bit of a sleep paralysis sometimes for those of you guys that are like conscious of being awake, but you can't really move or you can't really breathe. These are the kinds of things that basically are made almost like mental projections. They are a low level conscious entity like a shadow person, but usually they get tied into drug use and desires of the flesh. So if you have someone that's very much thinking about desiring someone in that manner, these are the things that absolutely are attracted to that kind of energy. But just remember, they are like a mosquito. You can't call them evil. This is just what they do. And if they're in our lives, it's because they're trying to point to something inside of us that needs to be remedied. So once again, these things can attach to humans and non-human entities. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities to have a family member maybe visit you in a dream and do something weird, or maybe one of these, red-eyed beings doing something inappropriate in a dream, or maybe even you just getting those sensations of something like that in a dream. It's very important that we clear these things because we don't want them around. If we do see them, they are a very small shadow, something very small that almost looks like a small animal, I guess you can say. So if they're low to the ground, sometimes people would see something like this and think it's like a shadow cat or think it's like a shadow dog or something little. And oftentimes there's usually a connection with one of these. So if you're dealing with one of these, make sure that we just use our mental connection, take away its pain, take away its memories of pain, send it nourishing energy, and then ask for angelic assistance to send it back to its home dimension. If it's just the succubus or by itself, remember this is a projection of consciousness. So if it is just a succubus or incubus, we would send them back to the universal mind. But if it's attached to something else, remember, taking them back to their own home dimension is going to be important. Collective entities. These are something that is definitely prevalent in hospitals, sometimes in churches, and in other kind of, nightlife, a lot of nightlife. So basically what happens is when like an earthbound entity attaches to a person, let's say it's a cancer person, okay? This person had brain cancer and they attach to another person and then that person dies of cancer. These things are now kind of connected and they share space with each other. And so this can kind of go on and on and on, and you can create large collectives. I've seen them as small as 2 and I've seen them as great as like 9 or 10. So it kind of depends. Basically, the 3 main causes of collectives that I've found are suicides, overdoses, and cancer. These are exactly what give rise to hereditary family illnesses. We need to find the entity that started the collective to effectively heal it and remove it. So the cool thing about it is if we have, say, if there's 10 entities in a collective, I don't have to go through each one down the line. I don't have to do that. It doesn't work that way. There's a quicker way. And so what I would ask to do is ask universal knowledge, do I have permission to connect to the higher self of all earthbound entities in this collective at the same time? I get my yes. I work on them. Once I do the healing, I take away their pain. I take away their memories of pain. I send them nourishing energy. Once I do that, then I ask them if there's anybody else there with them that's angry or upset that I'm talking to them. I'm looking for that hidden entity. And we're going to go ahead and keep doing that until there's nobody else that's there. And that's going to help us get to where we need to send the healing energy and get them to move on. Astral fragments are energetic remnants of a fetus that was lost due to miscarriage, abortion, stillborn, and absorbed twins. Children born after someone that has miscarried are sensitive to spirits. These can create an imbalance in the lower 3 chakras of the mother, giving rise to disease. Autoimmune issues in children afterwards born are very common, and remnants can be polarized with toxic emotional energy. So the way that we work with astral fragments, there's a couple different places you're going to find them. If a woman has a stillborn, miscarriage, abortion, or an absorbed twin, usually what happens is the physical component is removed from the body, but the energetic remnants of the energy bodies still remain. So what happens is we fill that area with grief, guilt, anger, frustration, all these real heavy emotions. These heavy emotions can polarize these energy bits and really turn them toxic. So it is very common for women that have experienced this kind of loss to possibly develop things like endometriosis, ovarian cancer, tumors, and cysts that affect the lower chakras. Now, for children that are born later, this is something that really affects the majority of the population on the planet today. For children that are born to a mother later of this, have basically attached to the thymus chakra, which is the upper heart chakra, in between the heart and the throat. You guys look up the thymus chakra. There's a lot of information out there about it. But this is where these energetic remnants get stored when you're a child that's born later afterwards. Okay. So typically in girls, it's going to produce a lot of depression and anxiety. Boys, anger and rage. It just seems to be that way. I don't know if it's the difference with estrogen and testosterone, but definitely a big part of that is going to be in these components of astral fragments that are attached to the thymus chakra. So the way that works best that I found is we can go back to, first we can connect with the higher self of the mother, and we can go through and balance her chakras and, take these astral fragments, take away their pain, take away their memories of pain, send them nourishing unconditional love energy, and then merge them back with their higher self or their core soul, whatever you want to call it. If this is something where you're working with someone that has it attached to the thymus, to the upper heart chakra, one of the biggest, quickest ways that I found works is we take our healing energy and we ask to direct it back to in the womb, when the person was in the womb of the mother, and we go to the point of conception. If we go to that point of conception when the sperm and the egg fertilize, we can then tap into both parents at the same time and start working on the emotional stuff, on the astral stuff. So once again, go to that point of conception and then tap into both parents, take away their pain, take away their memories of pain, send them nourishing unconditional love energy. Allow them to feel full, content, complete once again. We do this, then we ask to work on the fetus itself, which is actually the person who's still alive. And then we witness perfect formation of the fetus. We can send in unconditional love energy. We can do the work on the fetus. Just basically witness perfect formation of a healthy fetus and a perfect birth to this person, and then bring that healing all the way to the present moment. So kind of a complicated one. I have more of that on my YouTube channel if you guys want to find out more about that. But in a nutshell, that's pretty much how it works. So why would we want to help the disincarnated? So when we act out of a form of service, this also aligns us with unconditional love. This can clear our negative karma from many timelines, and I really believe this is why we're here, is to help heal others that are lost and others that just need a little extra boost along the way. So when we help those that are lost or help the disincarnated, we gain allies of light while doing the work. So it's very common for us to maybe have that one family member that maybe didn't treat family very well, that wasn't real nice. Maybe they were an alcoholic. Maybe they were abusive, mentally, physically, sexually. And because of that, they kind of have a lot of guilt. And they want to be helped, but they're ashamed and most of the time afraid of being punished by going to the light. So it's really up to us to help them get out of their state of being and help them understand that no matter what they've done in life, that punishment is not what waits for them. Sometimes religious dogmas get in the way and they believe there's only heaven and hell, or maybe they had a child out of wedlock and because of that they think hell's waiting for them. Okay, these are all concepts of the mind, and we are spirit and we are not bound to such concepts. We reside outside of time and space when we disincarnate. So really what it comes down to is we want to help them heal and get to the light. And then more times than not, We get them to heal. They become a being of light. And then they bring others just like them to you or other family members to you. This helps us gain more allies of light that are with us. They need our help and we can help them. And when we act in service, it helps us grow spiritually much faster. We can also assist the angels in the work, and they can assist us in this work. I'll tell you the story about this fellow named Jesus. They talk about this guy that came down from heaven, was a son of God, and came down and died for everybody's sins. So, pretty cool dude by that term. But if you think of it, if family trauma can be handed down generation by generation, then our healing can be handed down generation by generation. Everyone before us, everyone after us. What if your ancestors prayed for someone like you to be able to help them? What if you came down as the son or daughter of God and lived your life in service to help clear them of all of their sins? Are you catching the message? Most people want to focus on the messenger, but did you get the message? We can help them, and we're here for a reason. If you like what I'm talking about so far, and you feel that this resonates with you, you're the type of person that this video is for. So, in order to make all of this possible, we have to align with free will. Free will cannot be infringed on if we want to properly clear an entity. We have to align with free will. Even God doesn't step in and mess with our free will. We have the free will to be our best friend or our own worst enemy. So humans and human entities are granted permission through the higher self when it comes down to helping them. We want to ask the higher self of a human entity if we have permission. Do we have permission to help send them healing energy? Do we have permission to bring in a being of light to assist us? It's all based off permission. If we don't ask permission, you're not going to get as good as results. As soon as we align with that free will, we're good to go. So when we are dealing with like a jinn or an ifrit, shadow person, succubus, something like that, a mental connection or an agreement are usually efficient. So mental connections are fine. Agreement being after you help them, ask them if they'll leave the person alone, if you can help get them back to their house or, back to their home dimension, I guess you could say. So understand we are here to help counsel and educate those that have passed. And with their permission to help, we can do just that. And just like any good car salesman, we want to be able to direct the conversation. We're not being sleazy or any of that kind of stuff. So it's nothing like that. But what we are selling is the ability to be forgiven. We are selling the ability to allow them to be whole again. And there's certain ways that we can persuade them to help them see the truth of this all. Really, we're just here to enlighten them and help send them on their way. I look forward to answering any of those questions you have about that in the Q&A that has to go with this, or just drop a comment, and I will gladly answer any questions that you have. So, pendulums. I know a lot of people on here might have a go-to that they like, or maybe like most of us, you probably have more than you need in a lot of different kinds. So, through my own experience and in the years I've been doing this kind of work, I've found that different pendulums are good for different things. Someone can say you can douse with anything. You absolutely can douse with anything. But to effectively send the ha and the healing energy, it interacts with all of these pendulums, but they all have a little difference to them, okay? So as you can see, I got a crystal pendulum on the left done by Patty O'Brien. That's a crystal believer, but that's actually a Vogel quartz that I have on there. And then we have in the middle, which is a universal pendulum. These are wooden and they have a metal core to them. They look complicated, but super, super easy to read, super easy to use, and highly recommend anybody that wants a little bit of an old school pendulum that still can pack a punch. Universal pendulums are great. For me, what I like to work with, I like the brass ones. I like the brass ones and the metal ones because most of the stuff that I do is all distance work, okay? So crystal pendulums are really, really good for working on in-person stuff. Like if you're in a house and there's a ghost in the house or something like that, you can totally use a crystal one. These interact with our energy field. These interact with our astral body. So we can send energy, we can transmute energy really, really well in person with them. Wooden pendulums can do a lot of the same thing, but what I've found, wooden pendulums have the ability to interact with us. If I have something that I'm working on myself, whether it be self sabotaging behavior or any kind of conflicts of the mind, maybe I'm constantly thinking negative or something like that, neutralizing that stuff works really, really well with a wooden pendulum. And then, like I said before, the metal pendulums, the brass pendulums, those are really good for doing any distance work. Some people love doing map dowsing with them because they're easier to read. But anytime we're tapping into somebody else's house and help clearing someone's house or working on someone's energy field from a distance, I highly recommend that we use the metal pendulums. Now, all pendulums are going to interact with the ha when we do it. Some pendulums interact a little bit better. So really what it comes down to is our intention. What do we want to do and how do we want to do it? Depending on what you want to do should also depend on the type of pendulum that you have. So like we said before with the metal pendulums, for me, I find they connect really well on a mental level. I can really send mental commands really, really well with these copper, brass, silver pendulums. Although I don't use copper too much, I know that's kind of a common one that's out there. I think they connect well with the mental body. As you can see, this is the Auk pendulum. This is probably one of the most versatile and powerful pendulums that I've made. It seems to outshine a lot of them in many different things, but not in everything. This one is the Furba. This one has an energy quality to it. Some would probably know as negative green. I know it as gray. Gray energy basically is really good. It's stopping and starting certain cycles. So if we're doing work on someone that we're clearing stored information from many timelines, maybe from the beginning of time to the present moment, these are the type of pendulums that we like to use for this kind of work. It's very effective when you use like a negative green or gray energy pendulum. This is my Hakao. This Hakao pendulum has an infrared energy to it. Infrared is very good at balancing and restoring balance to the reproductive system in females, and it's also really good at neutralizing any kind of self-sabotaging behavior. Self-sabotaging behavior can be seen a few different ways. What I like to tell people is if you think of your physical body and your brain as the best brand new computer that's out there, okay, we are operating very, very well as a new computer. However, if I open up 50 windows and I leave that computer on for a month, it's probably going to lag the system and it's going to make it run a lot slower. Self-sabotaging behavior is like open windows. So what we do is we can help close these open windows that are connected to other timelines through our consciousness. And we can also, getting back to the astral fragments, this would be probably the best pendulum to use when we're working with astral fragments. And this one right here, this is my Sekhmet pendulum. This one it has like a violet energy quality to it, so it's kind of like a white light energy, but there's more you can do with it. And I found that violet energy really works well for stuff with the mind. People that have split personality, maybe multiple personality, sub-personalities. Maybe there was trauma sustained from a car accident, trauma sustained from removing a brain tumor. These are the kinds of things, anything that really affects the consciousness and the mind, I try and work with the violet energy because it really has lasting effects that can be very beneficial to whoever you're working with. But any of these pendulums you can use at a distance and clear entities from a person's house with. So crystal pendulums, as you can see, I got a couple more Believers here by Patty O'Brien. This is an ametrine one, citrine and amethyst, and then this is a big smoky quartz one. Okay, so both of these can interact really well with our astral bodies. If I have a ghost in my house, I can use one of these to help clear it, no problem. But just understand that crystals can store information. They can absolutely hold on to information, okay? So if we're, say, a Reiki practitioner and we're using crystals on one client, it would be very beneficial to cleanse that crystal before we try and use it on another person. If I pray with these things all the time, it's really going to get to know my energy. And when we were talking about the jinn, there is a method which is kind of messed up. but there's a method that people would actually take these jinn and trap them in these crystals. It's an old method. It's not a method that's out of love. They would trap them in these crystals, and then they would try and bury them in the earth or get rid of the crystal to try and neutralize it. And what happens is they get stuck in these crystals. And then if you're a crystal enthusiast like I am, you find one that you're drawn to and you're like, wow, this is really nice. I can't believe this is here at the store for this price or on this path. I'm finding this. This is great. And then you bring it into your house without blessing it. And then all of a sudden you got an entity in your home. So you got to be real careful when dealing with crystals. One of the biggest things that works for me is just putting my hands around the crystal, holding it up to my head, and I set my prayer and intention on these crystals. I ask to bless them in the highest light. I ask to cleanse them of all negativity, and I ask that it align with source energy and release anything that doesn't serve my highest good, health, and well-being. One of the things, too, you can sleep with these under your pillow, and oftentimes you can have some really amazing dreams. So I definitely encourage you guys to find all that out. Everybody has their own way of learning, and that's just some of the stuff that I've learned that works well with crystals. Wood pendulums. These actually have become one of my more favorite pendulums to use now. I love the lightweight and the responsiveness to them. But anything that's wooden, I think, really works well for when we work on ourselves. Again, if I have a ghost in my house, I can totally use a wooden pendulum in my house. That's not a problem. But they work really, really well for conflicts of the mind. Any of that self-sabotaging behavior, any kind of trauma sustained from like a car accident, or maybe childhood trauma. That's a big one. Childhood trauma that leads to addiction usually can be treated really well with a wooden pendulum. This is the aquats again. You saw the metal kind that's out there. This one has kind of like a bluish, blue-green kind of energy to it. Very good for healing. And then once again, this is that Sekhmet. This is made out of purple heartwood and is very, very good for emotional clearing, stored emotions, trapped emotions in the organs in the body, and any kind of consciousness that needs to be adjusted or any of that kind of stuff. This works really, really well for. Once again, I have more information on my YouTube channel about using these things, but as a rundown, they're excellent for balancing chakras and treating the mind and disassociation of consciousness. So now that we've talked a little bit about pendulum choice and some about entities, we're going to talk about inducing the loop. So inducing the loop is a state of being that we want to have when we're sending healing energy to people. So when we breathe in, we hold it for 4 seconds. In my mind, I'm saying, I love you. Exhale, hold it for 4 seconds. I'm sorry. Exhale, making your sound. 8 seconds, please forgive me, is what you're saying in your mind. Then we hold our breath for 4 seconds and we say thank you. We do this, and if I can attach just a little bit of emotion with what I have going on here, it's going to really help speed things along. Like, for instance, if I had a family member that passed away and they're here in my house and they need some help, what I'm going to say is, in my mind, I'm going to breathe in and I'm just going to let them know that I love you. I'm going to hold my breath and I'm going to say, I'm sorry for taking so long. I'm going to exhale and say, please forgive me as I am learning still. I'm going to hold my breath and say, thank you. I appreciate you. Anytime we give a little bit of that emotion with it, it makes things so stronger. And it's going to be really, really helpful, okay? So we want to repeat these steps until we get the goosebumps or when the pendulum stops spinning. So to show you what that kind of looks like, it looks like this. I have my pendulum, and I'm going to say, if I'm working on like an entity that's here, I'll ask, do I have permission to contact their higher self? I get my yes. I got my spinning. I get my yes. Okay. And then I'm going to say, okay, do we have that connection at this time? Yes. Then I'll say, okay, this is Nick. I greet you in light, love, with the Creator. I'm here to help. Can you hear me at this time? You get a yes. Then I'll say, are you in pain or discomfort? I get a yes. Then I'll say, Would you like some assistance? I can help you remove your pain. We get a yes. So when you do the ha, I'll show you what it looks like and how it affects the pendulum and how it goes back to a neutral position. So I'm going to say, please relax, open up, and receive this healing energy. And I induce the loop with the ha. And as you can see, it's done spinning and it's gone back to its north and south, which is my indication that I'm ready to move on to the next stage. So hopefully that helps paint that picture with how that works. So when we're crossing over our human entities, just to recap what we were already talking about, is we want to ask for permission to connect to their higher self. Tell them who you are and that you've come here to help them. Very first question I usually ask them after, can you hear me, is, are you in pain or discomfort? They usually are. If it's a yes, then let them know you can help them remove their pain. Then you ask, would you like for me to assist you? Once we have done this, we have aligned with their free will and are ready to proceed. So what I have is the white is going to be basically the command, and then the yellow is the instruction that you do after the command. So feel free to take as much time as you need to get this down and to put it in your own words, but the structure of it is what is most important, knowing how to initiate the contact and how to initiate the healing. So we ask to remove all pain and cure all astral lesions in the earthbound entity. We perform the ha breath until we get our goosebumps or until the pendulum balances out again. Then we depolarize all negative mental stimuli and neutralize all toxic emotional energy stored in the bank of memory and energy field of the entity, or just simply put, memories of pain and toxic energy. Perform the ha breath until we get our goosebumps and the pendulum balances out. Last but not least, we nourish the Christ spark with unconditional love energy and to make them feel full, content, and complete once again. Perform the ha breath until we get our goosebumps and the pendulum balances out. We ask them, do you feel better? Usually you're going to get a yes right away. They feel a lot better, okay? Then we ask them if there is anyone else there with them that's angry or upset that you're talking to them. If you get a no, we're going to ready to proceed to get them to cross over. If it's a yes, just say, okay, hold on tight. Let me talk with them real quick, and I'll come back and finish helping you. Don't forget to come back and finish helping them, okay? We ask to bring forth the next entity to help, and then we initiate the healing process with them. Remember, contact their higher self, align with their free will, ask them if they're in pain, and if they would like some assistance, align with that free will, and you'll be able to do it with them, okay? So, if there's no one else with them, we ask them, would you like to join your family and friends in the light? Most of the time, they're going to say yes. Once again, those religious dogmas or whatever it is, they might say no. And then we explain to them that no pain or any of that kind of stuff is going to hurt them. And from there, one of the things that I bargain with them is, hey, would you like for me to give you a preview of what it looks like, what it feels like before you make an actual decision? And that usually will get a yes right away. They're down to see what it looks like without saying, yeah, I'm going to go. So from there, I just explain to them, I'm going to put a bubble of light around you that's going to help me transport them to the light, let them see it and experience it without actually being absorbed by it yet. So what we do is we ask to place them in a bubble of light. From there, send them to the Christic planes or to the light or to source or whatever, have them feel around, see it, and then ask them, is this a place that you would like to stay? They say yes, say okay. Bring them right back to the present moment, take off the bubble, and now they're ready to go because now you've shown them where they're going, and they'll always say yes after you bring them back, but please take off the bubble, and that way you're going to help them, okay? So this is something that some people might have a different understanding. In some of my other videos you guys have seen, I would ask to call upon a family guide or someone that can help them, which is still a good idea. But there's a lot of information out there where people aren't sure that if you make them merge with the light, does this keep them stuck in the reincarnation cycle? Ultimately, we want them to exit the reincarnation cycle, and we want them to merge with the Creator and merge back with Source. So, what I ask them is to look down into the middle of their chest, like where you see my little necklace here. I ask them to look down the middle of their chest and tell me, do you see a light there? If it's a human, they're going to say yes, because there's a light there. Sometimes I've had non-human entities pretend to be humans because they're afraid that you won't help them. So if they look down and they don't see a light in the middle of their chest, it's because they are a non-human entity. Let them know that it's okay and that you mean love and that you're not going to hurt them or punish them. Call on your angelic assistants to help clear those out of the way. But if it's a human entity, they're going to have this light, okay? Then I say, okay, look into this light, gaze into this light, and take a deep breath in with me. And I go, ready? 1, 2, 3. And then I perform the ha loop. And you may have to do this more than once. Most of the time, just once is enough. But sometimes the goosebumps don't quite come all the way there, and we got to give them a little bit more oomph to get them to move on, okay? So have them find the light in the middle of their chest and then absorb them into that light. This is going to absorb them with the Creator and help them exit the cycle of reincarnation. They can totally reincarnate if they want to. It's not something they are bound to, but it is by their choice that they can choose to, which I'm sure many of us in this audience have fit this description where we could have left reincarnation, but we decided to come down and help again, okay? Make sure if this is an entity that was revealed after working on another one, that there was someone else angry or upset you're talking to them, heal them and then go back to the first one and then do the same work on them, okay? We don't want to leave them behind. We want to help them all, okay? And last but not least, keep your vibration high. And we ask to express our gratitude and for being able to help these entities from this side of the veil, and be sure we send our blessing to any angelic assistants or beings of light that are there. The Egyptians would actually send their breath. The Hawaiians would send their breath of aloha. And this would be something that you could even do too, send them a blessing by sending them your love and your breath. This ties life force to them, and sometimes they don't need it, but either way, it's a very good gesture, and it shows your appreciation on many different levels. So when we cross over non-human entities, we ask to make a mental connection with the entity, let them know who you are and that you've come here to help them. Once again, we ask them if they're in pain or discomfort. If so, let them know you can remove their pain. Okay. Then you ask them if they would like for you to assist them. Now we're aligned with their free will and ready to proceed. Do you guys see a theme here? It's actually a lot easier than you think. So I hope this is starting to make sense after seeing how it works. We remove all their pain and cure all astral lesions. Perform the ha until you get your goosebumps or until the pendulum balances out. Depolarize negative mental stimuli. Neutralize all toxic emotional energy stored in the bank of memory and energy field of the entity. You can even make it better by saying from all timelines, future, past, present, parallel, known, and unknown. Okay? But as long as you're working on the bank of memory, it should go after all these different timelines that it's connected to, okay? Perform the ha breath until you get goosebumps or the pendulum balances out. We nourish these. They don't have a Christ spark, but we can still send them nourishing, unconditional love energy to feed them and to make them feel full, content, and complete once again, okay? Perform the ha breath until we get the goosebumps or the pendulum balances out. We ask them, do you feel better? We get a yes or no. We ask if there's anyone else there with them that's angry or upset, that you're talking to them, yes or no. If it's a yes, tell them you will come back and help them, but need to talk to the other entity first. Then ask to bring forth the next entity to help initiate the healing process with them. If no, then ask them if they would like to go back to their home dimension, which I'm sure you're going to get a yes. And then you call upon a spirit guide or guardian angel that can assist you and help direct them back to their home dimension. You can say, do you see a being of light there with you? Probably going to get a yes. And is this being of light asking them to go with them? Yes or no? Usually it's yes. Then we ask them, will you go with them? Yes. Now we've aligned with their free will as well. Now they're ready to go. Um, if no, if they don't want to go with them and they say no, check for any other entities that are with them or attached. Because sometimes, like I said, it can get complicated. But sometimes there's something hitting behind, especially with the jinn. There could be a more powerful one that the Quran knows is shaitan that's there, and we need to help them too and understand if they're there, we can help them, and they just want help too. So that's what it really comes down to. Perform the Ha breath when we safely guide them and send them back to their home dimension is how we clear them. So we say, are you willing to go with them? They say yes. We say, okay. We ask to surround, protect, heal, and keep this entity in the light. We ask now to remove them from this house and all timelines, future, past, present, and parallel, known and unknown, and ask to merge them back with their home dimension. May they receive peace and tranquility for all eternity. Okay. After we're done and the pendulum balances back out, express your gratitude and for being able to help this entity from this side of the veil, and thank any beings of light that assisted you. Thought form energy, super easy to clear. This stuff clears a lot faster than human and non-human entities. We basically just depolarize all negative mental stimuli, neutralize all toxic emotional energy that's stored in the bank of memory and energy field of the entity. We perform the Ha breath until we get our goosebumps or our pendulum balances out. Check for any attached entities. Sometimes there might be a shadow person or a jinn or something like that that's like attached to a poltergeist energy. So check, make sure there's nothing else attached. If there is, bring them forward, do the healing, get them to go back to their home dimension, and then we go back to the thought form energy, which is poltergeist, tulpa, and we basically want to send it back to the universal mind. Sometimes a succubus or incubus can be a thought form energy if it's not attached to anything else. Usually if you just clear it, they'll kind of go at the same time, but they go back to the universal mind as well. So thought form energies, poltergeist, tulpas, succubus, and incubus energies, these are all thought form energies that need to go back to universal mind. Shadow person is not a thought form energy. They are non-human, and they go back to their own home dimension. There's additional resources I have. Understand, like most of you, methods kind of evolve over time, and so this is still great for resources. My first book, Opometric Pendulum Healing, basically is a great resource for spiritual phenomena. It has some charts in the back that you guys can use to help dive through and direct what you have going on in the house, what kind of entities that are there, what kind of traumas are holding on to, all that kind of stuff. Conflicts of Consciousness was my second book. This is something that deals with subpersonalities, multiple personalities, and disassociated consciousness. So this is where entities can attach. We can do the work on the people with the commands that are all in the books, and both books have a full set of commands. But like I said, my methods have kind of developed since I've created these books. So once again, they're a great resource and they help you understand how that stuff works. The first book's more about teaching you about what kind of entities that are out there and how they can attach to people. This is more like conflicts of consciousness and using color therapy to be therapeutic for helping treat this kind of stuff. If anybody here is watching this video and they can hear voices in your head and this kind of stuff, that's not your guides and more like spiritual parasites. There's some commands in this book that are going to be very, very helpful. Fortunately, the blue book is available in hard copy, and the purple cover is available in ebook only at the moment. So if my Facebook channel, I got Pendulum Opometrics. I'm also on Instagram, Pendulum Opometrics. You could find my YouTube channel, Nick Salzman. Here's my email, nicksalzman@gmail.com. You guys can order these books or any of my pendulums on pendulumopometrics.com. Just know that the pendulums that I have coming out these days, this is something that interacts with the Ha. I've been saying this before, that all pendulums are going to interact with the haw, but some are very good at holding on to a vibrational resonance. So this one is what I call my prayer pendulum that I keep pulling up that you guys see. It's a little bit larger, but it works really, really well at holding resonance for sound. Let me show you something. Can you hear that? Okay. Think of it like a singing bowl and a pendulum put together. So when I use that haw, it goes into that. The only other pendulum I have that helps with that is my Ock pendulum. These ones also create that little ding. Okay. So not all pendulums do that. These ones do, and they interact with the haw really, really well and are very good at doing distance work. Okay. So I just want to say a special thanks to some of the pioneers that I know that have pioneered this kind of work. John Vandry, Eugene Maury. These are two guys that I know have done a lot of work in the past to really be pioneers for this stuff. Raymond Grace definitely has his methods too, and he was one of the first people that I kind of learned from. He's an excellent resource for those of you that have never heard of him. The first book I ever came across was by a gentleman named Gary Leon Hill, and the book was called People That Don't Know That They're Dead. So I want to say a special thank you to these guys, some that are no longer with us, but that are with us in the ether, smiling down. And I hope to make them proud. And I hope that this kind of work resonates with some of you. And to be honest, I hope you guys take this haw and this clearing and this understanding of how we can apply it and take whatever you're doing to exciting new levels. Really, your imagination take you anywhere. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. Thank you again to the American Society of Dowsers for the opportunity to share my passion. I love you all. Thank you. If you have any questions for me, please leave one down at the bottom. I'd be happy to answer you. You can send me an email, nicksalzman@gmail.com. Check out my website, pendulumopometrics.com. See my books, my pendulums, whatever you like. And don't forget, we do this in service to all and in service to the one. You are loved, appreciated, and cared for. Thank you.